I've always sat in positions in the center of the industry.
Okay.
And you can't be successful sitting in the center of the industry without being a lone wolf. Who we be? That's it. So big up DMX, because he's the inspiration behind the Who We Be playlist. And that was it. That's how the name came up. Went into my car, pressed play. And after like song 3, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is it.
Welcome to the Hot Seat, a look behind the scenes of the music business, from the characters that make the difference. Today we have Austin Daboh, OBE, legend in the game, cultural superstar, someone who shaped the business for years and years, also a good friend of mine. We're going to talk about his career, some of the highlights and some of the things that he's experienced during his time in the music business. Austin, thank you for coming on today. I appreciate you.
Big intro, man. I appreciate that, bro.
I think it was needed. It was needed. I mean, I've been trying to get you on for a second, so the fact you come out and done this, I really appreciate it. And I also think I've seen you recently on some other bits and bobs as well. That's been really insightful, actually. And I think a lot of young people could learn a lot from some of the things that you've done in your career. Obviously, you've recently got an OBE, but I want to start from the very start. Like, what got you into music? I want to talk about your sort of early life and sort of your sort of family dynamic that sort of led you into the music business initially. So, can we start just really early, teenager sort of years? What sort of what inspired you to sort of even lean into music in any way? What?
Yeah, makes sense, man. So, I grew up in a household where music was the soundtrack of everything that was happening. But I'm an 80s baby that grew up in the 90s. So what it meant was I didn't really have musical choice in the same way that maybe today's generation of kids have got musical choice. You know, if you think about the average 4, 5, 6-year-old, they've got an iPad, you know, they've got access to YouTube, they can listen to more or less whatever music they want, Spotify, Apple Music playlists, etc. Yeah. But growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s as a primary school kid, you had to listen to what your parents what the older siblings were listening to. So for me growing up, it was more the sound of pop music, I'd say, in the late 80s, early 90s. So we're talking George Michael, we're talking Sting and the Police, we're talking Diana Ross, Tina Turner, obviously Michael Jackson and Prince. So that was really like, and then alongside that, West African high life music. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. West African high life music, reggae, etc. Yeah. So that was really my entry into music. And then I'm the youngest out of 6 kids.
Oh, right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I've got 3 older sisters and 2 older brothers. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
And it's amazing because there's 2 years between all of us. So it's like girl, 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 boy, boy, boy. So mum and dad was on some military timing with
scheduling.
Exactly, with the kids. So growing up, I didn't know that there was a music industry. If I fast forward to my teenage years, I didn't know that there was a music industry, but I feel like I was the prime age to experience the sort of the explosion of Black British music.
Okay.
In that, when jungle music first like hit the streets of London, I was like 8 years old.
Okay.
So being in the back of my sister's boyfriend's car, the BMW convertible 3 Series, you know, or maybe it was a 5 Series, 3 Series, and like hearing jungle music for the first time, and then going into secondary school, and I entered into secondary school just during the explosion of UK garage.
Okay, sick. So
do you get what I'm saying? Yeah, so the first time I had disposable income and I could afford to buy music myself, it was Sweet Female Attitude Flowers. That was the first song I ever purchased, and I was maybe 12 years old. Wow. 12, 13 years old. So I always loved music, and I followed sort of my favorite artists at the time. And it was really pirate radio that I would say really made me fall deeply in love with.
How would you receive pirate radio?
I'll get pirate radio through, I had like a little transistor radio set, and it was Mission FM.
Oh, sick.
Delight FM. Yeah. I think Freeze FM as well at the time, but definitely Mission FM. And it was all about Heartless Crew, man. It was all about Heartless Crew. Like, if I think back to like who are the artists and things that made me want to like get into the game, Heartless Crew, So Solid Crew, Nasty Crew, Here She Go. Do you know what I mean? They're the 4.
That was really exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely, man. Yeah, exactly. They're the 4. And because it was the first time growing up in London, it was the first time where we had seen people that looked like us
Yeah.
that were like famous.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm
can actually
saying?
imagine doing it yourself. At that
Exactly.
point. Yeah.
The only other people that were famous from the area that we grew up with were either athletes,
Yeah.
or people that were doing illegal activities. Do you get what I'm saying? They were the only two types of famous people in where
We can look up to.
Exactly. But that were like role models.
Or Americans that are on TV, which are not actually attainable. So
Exactly that.
Real people.
Exactly that, man. So for me, seeing all of them lot, man, Major Ace, do you know what I mean? Play Galero, like Target, all of them lot, man. Like I was just fascinated. So big up all of those lot, man. For sort of getting me into it. So anyway, sort of did that. And then when I got to like 16, 17 years old, you're now talking about Google and being a thing now, you know what I mean? So it's like, I was an early adopter of the internet compared to my friends and
you've always been quite tech sort of. I imagine you were sort of super tech savvy, really early adapter to any sort of trends in terms of technology sort of thing. So I'm assuming you leveraged that really early in terms of like trying to find new things and new genres and stuff.
Yeah, definitely, man. So I was really lucky because my mum had a job that gave her a computer as part of her work to take home. And this is during the era where people didn't really have computers. You used to have to go to the internet cafe to access the internet. Showing our age now. So it's like, it was one of those things where going into my house every day and being like, I'm the only person in my area that I knew of anyway, who had like access to the internet freely. Do you know what I mean? And it was a broadband connection as well, which not that many people had back then. Remember dial-up modem and the sound, the crackling sound or whatever. So for me, I was really lucky that and this is, you know, my career is about taking advantage of the luck that's handed to me. That was the luck.
Okay.
But what I done with that luck was, I was an early adopter of Photoshop, Fruity Loops. Do you know what I mean? I was on Google, so I was able to research faster than maybe my peers because if I knew that there was a job going, I could research maybe in a way that was a bit more efficient than they could. The same way now, today's generation, are you the ones who get into grips with DeepSeek and ChatGPT and AI are going to be ahead of their peers that aren't quite up to speed? It's the same kind of thing.
Wow, interesting. So at what point do you decide that this is going to be a career for you? At what point do you go, actually, I think I can actually earn a living out of being involved in music?
I fell into the music industry because I was managing a really good friend of mine who was a rapper at the time. And what happened was, because I was the only person who had a computer, access to certain things, I basically started managing him without really realising I was managing.
So you were just like helping him out?
I was helping out a friend, exactly.
It turned into...
Exactly that. I was just helping out a friend.
Okay.
So what happened was, by helping out a friend, that friend then started to gain notoriety in the area, and then it then turned into like, let's say, London notoriety, then a bit of national notoriety with One Extra, Choice FM at the time, Kiss FM.
Choice. Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Capital Extra now, like playing him, playlisting him, etc. So then naturally, as his manager, that kind of then rolled me into... Did you get him
on the playlist as well? Were you the person sort of sending music off?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All of that early stuff.
Support, man.
Exactly. All of that early stuff. Exactly that, man. So what happened was, big up Ras Kwame. Because,
legend.
Yeah, man.
Homegrown.
Exactly. So we must have gone to an event that we heard about on the internet again. And Ras Kwame was there. And we tried to blag our way in. And I'll never forget, security stopped us. And then Ras could have, I think he just saw two young black boys that were just trying thing in the industry.
He saw himself.
And he was like, nah, they're cool, man. Yeah, they're with me. And he let us through. So I don't think I've ever told that story to Ras before, but big up Ras Kwame, because if it wasn't for that moment there, I wouldn't have got into that. And then, you know, we were like, right, we're around. He's been a big
champion
for a lot of people, man. Do you know what I mean? And there's a whole generation from that era who probably don't quite get the recognition they deserve, like Ras Kwame, 279, Robbo Ranks, Shawnee B. Some of them are obviously still very active, some of them less so. But there's that whole generation Ray Paul, of course, Ray Paul, Laura Lucans, you know, legends, goes without saying. I owe my whole career to Laura Lucans. As I say, anyone who wants to listen, you know what I mean? Laura's the reason I'm here. But what I would say is the output of their support during that period, it wasn't as big as the output of someone who works in, let's say, Spotify now, because the output of a One Extra playlist wasn't as big as the output as of being added to like a massive streaming playlist that's got a million, you know, followers or whatever. So that's why I don't think they get the credit that they deserve. But they are absolutely a cornerstone to the success that black music's having now.
Yeah.
You draw the line across, and Ras and Laura and Ray and all of that generation are all.
Yeah.
And by the way, some of them are still doing amazing. Big up Laura Lucan, she's at Amazon Music, killing it right now, etc.
No, I see that. I think culturally, it was really important to have people that were championing sort of black culture in the UK. I think I remember a time of media being really sort of, when I entered the business, it'd been really hard to bring black culture music into the mainstream at all, and those people were really sort of key to open the door. So I totally get that. So how did you manage to get in the door at the BBC? Tell us about that sort of situation.
Yeah, story. Yeah. So what happened was I was working for a media monitoring agency, and a media monitoring agency is because it doesn't really exist anymore, but a media monitoring agency is basically an agency that you would pay to read and watch the news for you. So if you were like Coca-Cola,
yes,
and you were launching a new flavour drink, you would pay this company, Durrance, to monitor the news to make sure no one was saying anything bad. The drink, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, really?
Obviously now you've got Google News alerts and stuff like that, so it's a bit of a lost industry now. But basically, I was working there as a media.
So how do you find that even existed? Again,
that's a really good. That's a really good. I actually don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even tell you. That was the Google, I think maybe read.com or whatever. That was like a jobs website. I don't know if it still exists.
I think that really speaks to your character.
Yeah, man. I was just Googling one day late at night. I probably had a kind of Red Bull and some crisps or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? I was just like, and at the time, this is the mid-noughties now.
Yeah.
So I'm out of the college and education system. I had just dropped out of uni. And if I'm being honest, I was a bit lost. You know, looking back now, I didn't think so at the time, but looking back now, the younger me, I was a bit lost. So I feel like, and then all the friends around me are all like, they were also like making money. Do you know what I'm saying? But through ways that I didn't necessarily want to make money.
Got it.
So I was thinking I've got to try and find a way to get up to that same level of earning potential, but without the risk associated to it.
Got it.
So I was just on Google all the time, and I must have applied for 1,000 jobs. Probably 900 of them never got back to me.
Yeah.
The rest of them were rejection letters. I'll go for interviews. Sometimes they'll call me back. Sometimes they wouldn't. But that really built my character. I think one thing that I hear a lot of the younger generation talk about is the hiring experience, and how even a rejection experience also has to be positive. Do you know what I mean? In terms of how that looks. And fortitude, man, is what I say to the younger generation, man. Do you know what I mean? Like you've got to be okay with rejection.
Yeah.
And even now, 20 years on, I'm still rejected every single day in some way, shape, or form in my job. So anyway, rewinding back. So I was at Durrance doing media monitoring. One of the clients that I had was the BBC, which meant that every single day I was reading hundreds of articles about the BBC.
Okay.
And by osmosis, I was learning and becoming a world-class expert on the BBC, because every single day I'm reading the most mind-numbing, boring articles about the BBC's governance, its structure, mergers with its commercial department. Do you know what I mean? What presenters are being hired and fired, etc. So I was 19 at the time.
Yeah.
But just 6 months of just every single day coming in and reading about the BBC.
Wow.
When a job came up at the BBC working in the marketing department, it said that you need to have experience. Of the media landscape, and you need to know about current affairs. And I was like, well, I know all about the BBC. And because I'm working for a news company,
you're across all the
across the news.
Yeah.
So it was the job at the BBC was working in their marketing department as a media scheduler. So, the BBC doesn't have their own adverts, but they have adverts for other programs in between. So it was someone who schedules those adverts for BBC programs, basically.
Correct.
So I applied for the job, and in the interview, it was clear that I probably didn't have enough experience. But just as I was literally, it was like a film, because just as I stood up, and the guy was like, all right, well, we'll be in touch. But I had the feeling that the job wasn't mine. Exactly. It's like, we'll be in touch. Exactly. We'll be in touch, but we won't be. I literally had my hand on the door, and the guy called me back and was like, oh, Austin, it says here that your favourite thing to do when you're in your spare time is watching the news. That can't be true, can it? And I was like, yeah, no, it is. I kind of work for a media company. I love sport, obviously. I watch Sky Sports and stuff. But actually, in the background, a lot of the time, if it's not music, it's BBC News or Sky News. Yeah. And he was like, okay, cool. So did you watch it this morning? And I was like, yeah. And he went, oh, so who won the German election? And I was like, oh, Angela Merkel. And he went, who did she defeat? And I was like, oh, Gerhard Schroeder.
Bro, I wouldn't know that.
And that's what got me the job. Do you know what I mean?
Really?
Like that,
Wow.
Just the fact I could answer a question on the German election that had happened that morning. Do you know what I mean?
Off the cuff,
do you know what I mean?
real.
So again, luck, right place, right time, but in some way, shape or form, thinking that would be some useful information I can regurgitate at a later date. So
That's crazy.
that was how I got in. Now, during that time, when I was in, the BBC was changing them times. I think I joined at the very end of the old BBC.
Okay.
That was still extremely white.
Okay.
Extremely
Like that
divided
sort
by
of-
divided by class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On my first day in the building, there were still people having like cheeky cigars inside the building. Do you know what I'm
right,
saying?
right,
Like,
yeah.
you know, I remember seeing some characters around the building, let's say. So I didn't really feel like that was my place. I was the only black person in a department of about 100 people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say race played a factor because that would be unfair, but I think class did for sure.
Okay.
It felt like I was the only person from a council estate background
Yeah.
who didn't have some level of like higher education,
privilege.
etc. Some level of privilege.
Yeah.
That could be unfair because there was 100 people. I didn't meet everyone. But
That's how it felt for you.
My cross section of
Yeah.
my team at the time, that's how it felt. So I was just like, I'm not going to be here for long. But at the same time, while that was going on, my friend who was making music at this point, so that now intersects with the Ras Kwame story and all of that stuff, One Extra, Capital FM, etc. Trace FM, etc. So what happened was I was on the internal BBC jobs website one day, and a job came up.
Because
at One
you're already
Extra.
in doing
Because I'm already in. Because I'm already in.
marketing.
Exactly.
Got it.
So a job's come up on the internal jobs website.
Yeah.
And when I've looked at it, someone in the BBC HR division had just copied and pasted my job spec into the new job spec, but instead of scheduling trails, it was scheduling music.
Oh, okay.
So I looked at it and like, I got goosebumps because I was like, this is literally my job spec, but they've just literally taken out scheduling and put in music. So I was like, this job's got my name written all over it. So even though I had no formal industry experience, and my only experience was a little bit of doing some pirate radio bits and pieces, and then managing my friend and a few other little startups that failed, like music magazines and stuff like that. But there was no formal experience. I applied for that job knowing I was going to get it. I just knew I was going to get the job.
And that was your job.
How am I not going to get it? How am I not going to get this
not
job?
choose me for this?
Yeah, you know, and I had this sort of arrogance and naivety of youth, you know.
Yeah.
So I went for the job, was interviewed by Laura Lucans. I was up against, she tells me I was up against people that were way more experienced than me, and I still don't even know why. Like, why she chose me. You know, I've never actually sat her down and said why, like why
You should
me?
ask her.
You know, and I'll ask her. You know, if you're watching this, Laura, you're gonna have to text me and tell me why. But she obviously saw something, some level of promise. So she gave me the job. But what I didn't realize when I applied for the job was it was actually a way more senior job than I expected.
So why is that?
Because when I was in the BBC marketing department scheduling the trails, that was a really junior job.
Okay.
And the term coordinator, I was a media coordinator. That sounds like quite a junior job title.
Yeah.
So when the job title music coordinator came up and it was my same job spec,
You thought it would be the same level?
I thought it would be the same level. But it was actually effectively assistant head of music
Wow.
at One Extra.
Okay.
So I'm coming in and it was like being thrown into the deep. I had a lot to learn, you know, but I love throwing myself into the deep end, man. My whole career shows that's what
Now, I remember that time though. I remember when you were sort of in there. I remember your name was ringing out because I was in management around that time, and we had a bunch of artists that were constantly trying to get on radio. And within, I don't know, I think 3 months of you being there, everyone was like, if you want to get on this channel, you need to find Austin. So I can only imagine you having like tons of people onto you, like trying to get their music on. How did you handle the sort of traffic and trying to be respectful whilst trying to also do a really good job in your role?
Yeah, it was tricky, you know, because I'm also coming from a kind of a street environment. Like, you know, I'm not from the roads or anything like that. You know, I grew up in a sort of a loving household or whatever, but I grew up in a bad area.
Yeah.
You know, so there's elements of my childhood and my teenage years that are kind of there's sort of moments, you know, there's moments that you could say are sort of street life kind of moments or whatever. So I'm coming from a place of relative trauma.
Yeah.
So to suddenly be in the spotlight and feel a level of like industry fame, you know, with people that I don't know calling me, people that I don't know coming up to me at events and recognizing me and stuff.
Yeah.
It was really scary at first. And I had like a really high level of like a really high defense mechanism at that point. So I probably didn't always handle every interaction perfectly because anyone asking for something, I thought like there was an element of danger, if that makes sense. Because, you know, there might be some, do you know what I mean? Because there's money at stake.
Yeah.
You play this something, that's PRS, that's money in someone's pocket. So I think at first it was quite challenging, but after a period of time, I learned like much better ways to like handle it.
Yeah.
But, you know, touch wood, thank God, I've never been involved in any mad situations, you know, off the back of that. But yeah, generally, man, it's been one of those ones where it's just, you know, duck and dive.
Has mad situations tried to find you before? You better just sort of like just navigate the characters.
Exactly that. You know, exactly that. But it's one of those ones where I always found that transparency and approaching the problem directly stops any of that in its tracks. So if I ever caught wind of an artist feeling away about something, I'll just get their number and call them immediately. And some of my best relationships that I've got now are off the back of those really honest conversations.
Really? Okay.
You know, if I think, I won't mention any names, but just there's some really strong relationships I've got now that started with that artist feeling really aggrieved.
That they weren't supported.
Exactly, that they weren't being supported. Exactly. But you can't help everyone.
You can't, and you have to make a decision. I totally get that. And also, you used to run One Extra Live as well. I remember that was such a big thing for the industry. Outside of the Mobos for us, it was like the most important black event there was, sort of thing. How do you sort of handle putting that together and sort of managing who would be on and who wouldn't be on?
Yeah. That's a really good question, you know, because it's like, I see all of the drama around Wireless Festival.
This is why I asked the question, because I've seen some people getting harder.
Exactly. And I see it every year. People get onto the Wireless Festival lineup, and I'm like, surely by now you've got to know how it works, man. Like, it's not just this like quality street tin of artists that is like, I'm gonna pick that one and that one. Like, there's so much that goes into it, you know. So first of all, just on the most simplest level, who's available? There are certain artists that just aren't available on that.
Because they're touring,
exactly.
Or they're just committed to
exactly, or they've got to go to a wedding or whatever. Just they're not available. Then secondly, certain artists have got exclusivity around touring.
Yeah.
So if someone, I'm just making it up here, but if someone has committed to doing a festival in Birmingham, for example, and we've got One Extra Live in Coventry, they've been told that they can't do another event within a 20-mile square radius off that event between this time and that time.
And that's because they sold tickets, and if someone bought a ticket to a concert, and then someone else gets a concert next to theirs, sort of thing,
for free,
it undercuts the promoters for that. So it makes financial sense, but a lot of people would never even understand that.
Exactly. And then you've then got things like lineup sensitivity. So you might have two big A-list artists, and both of those A-list artists are saying, we're up for doing the event, but then they both want to be headline acts.
Okay.
But you can only have one headline. There's only one person that can close the show.
Yeah.
So it's then about saying, all right, well, we believe that the run of the show, this particular artist should probably close the show. So then the other A-lister who didn't want to do it is like, all right, well, for my own kind of reputation, credibility, my standing in the market, etc., my value in the market, I'm going to step aside. So if you look at every single festival lineup, it's always a compromise. If every festival booker could do their dream lineup, it would be very different. But and One Extra Live was a very similar situation where it's like we had some amazing lineups and some of the best lineups, you know, of black music at the time.
Which was your favourite? Or do you love all your children?
No, you know what? I would say One Extra Live 2010. At the height of that black music explosion. If you think of that generation of Tiny, N-Dubs, Chip.
That's a great time. It was a great time.
KEB. Pairs Should Go, not Pairs Should Go, Roll Deep. I would say Pairs Should Go, Roll Deep. Roll Deep. That time there, that was insane. And then we then had like, during that era, Chris Brown, Akon, you know, we had some real big hitters off the moment.
Massive.
And then I'd say 2014, because that was then the changing of guard again, you know, where we had like the new and improved Skepta and Boy Better Know.
God, where Skepta reinvented himself.
Yeah, exactly. We had Lethal Bizzle. We had who else did we have? We had like Rick Ross. The year after that, we had Stormzy. So that 2014, 2015 was probably my two favorite One Extra Labs alongside 2010.
Yeah, I think when you did that, I think it really helped legitimize, and I think it helped the touring in the UK for black culture, because for years, and gigs is a good reference, there's been a lot of sort of challenges with people booking black artists across the UK, especially in rap. And I think the One Extra Live stuff proved that at scale it can be done, it can be organised, as long as you communicate properly with these people, that they're more than capable of putting on shows and people going home and everyone feeling good about everything, sort of thing. So I think what you did at that time was really important, and I think it sort of set up a lot of people's careers moving forward, and within the live world sort of thing in the UK. I think it was a real sort of like stamp of quality and a stamp of, okay, cool, we're other venues are open to taking on these sort of artists. So I'll say big up for that.
Yeah, I'll just quickly big up Ray Paul, because I was involved in the first One Extra Live, but I was more junior then.
Yeah.
But the person who sort of got it over the line and is still involved in live events, obviously to this day, is Ray Paul. So big up Ray Paul and the Playmaker group, and again Laura Lucans. So yeah, I wanted to just
absolutely, absolutely. That's important. Yeah. So you got One Extra. It's all going well. Everything's like black music in the UK is like smoking really hot, and then streaming happens. When sort of Spotify and all the streaming services started to land, and you're still at radio, what were you sort of were you thinking? Oh God, this is where the future is, or how did you transition from broadcast radio into the streaming world, and what were the reasons for you to sort of take action?
So, like you said, I've always been interested in technology and the way in which it changes the way that consumers behave. And I've always been someone who's been fascinated by how humans behave at scale and at mass. That's just always fascinated me. Like even as a young kid watching like movies and stuff, I would always be interested in like the sales figures and stuff like that. So when streaming first landed, it was like a eureka moment, because we had gone from, my generation is CDs, right? Our generation is CDs. So we had sort of gone from the CD era where you were limited by budget and physical space.
Yep.
To the MP3 era, where you were limited not really by budget, because you know we were doing a lot of naughty things back then with MP3s, but you know I never.
Certain people,
we as the human race were, but you were still limited by an element of physical space, because you know now you can pick up a 1 terabyte hard drive for £50 or £20 or whatever from Amazon, but back then you know you might have had a 100 gig hard drive which couldn't fit that much music alongside all your apps and stuff like that and documents. So going from that era where you could, you know, I had like, let's say 200 CDs when I was a teenager, to then late teens, early 20s having like 10,000 MP3s.
Jesus.
You know, but still, as high, probably 10,000.
But still, you could never go physically. That would have never been possible at home.
All paid for, obviously.
All legitimately bought. Got it.
And then, so then when I saw streaming, I was like, unlimited music, all you can eat, an all you can eat buffet for whatever it was at the time, £5 a month or £10 a month. And then I don't need to have any hard drive space. So it's all on the cloud.
Yeah.
Like a no-brainer. This is like the YouTube for music, basically. At that time, I wasn't really thinking of some of the economic implications that, you know, we now think about now when we talk about streaming. Back then, it just felt like a complete no-brainer.
No-brainer.
So I didn't quite know how it was going to affect radio, because at the time when I was at Radio 1 and 1 Extra, we were the king and queen makers of sort of popular culture, popular music at that time, right? If you were A-listed at Radio 1,
you're gone.
You know what I mean? The chances of you having a top 5 single, the correlation between those two things happening was extremely high, right? So back then we were sort of the apex. You know, we were the predator species.
The turning point.
Exactly, we were the predator species, the apex predator. Then I started to notice the correlation get weaker. So something would be added to the Radio 1 playlist, and we'll go through the 1 Extra system and be added to the Radio 1 playlist, and its effect wasn't as potent.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to caveat here and just stop in case any of my old radio friends are watching this. Radio is still massively important.
Yeah.
And you still, to have a true hit, you still need radio. So I'm going to just make that point clearly. But at the time, I could feel the potency. It wasn't as immediate.
Yeah.
So I started to feel like radio's place in the food chain was going to change.
Yeah.
So streaming was going to become the new apex predator, and radio would maybe just be like half a step below.
Yeah.
And at that time, George Ogatudis, my boss and kind of one of the people that's mentored me in my career.
Yeah. He was running Radio 1.
He was running Radio 1 at the time.
Yeah.
So he left to join Spotify.
Wow.
And, you know, I suppose I'll save that story for the book actually. But we, you know, he sort of, you know, a year later or whatever, you know, came to me and was like, you know, I really want you to kind of come and help me build something. And
at that point, you'd been head of One Extra for a year and done such a really good job with One Extra Live.
Exactly.
Broken a bunch of artists.
Exactly. 2 years at that point.
You were
2 years.
integral to breaking a bunch of artists, so he was able to see that you had the vision and you were able to sort of identify things super early.
Yeah, exactly. I think he always trusted me, right? Because if you look at the generation of superstars that came through across all genres, you know, I've got plaques for sort of Biffy Clyro, Ed Sheeran, a bunch of non-black music artists, because I sat on the Radio 1 playlist committee. So it wasn't just black music artists that I would go to him and say, you need to support this, or be like vocal about my support over. And I suppose the most kind of obvious one that most people know about is Ed Sheeran, you know, which is I was the first person to playlist Ed Sheeran anywhere globally.
Wow.
On his number 5 collaborations EP. It was a track
I remember
on
that.
radio, do you know what I mean, with JME. And I thought it's funny because the whole reason I did that was because the song was called Radio, and him and JME talking about how they're not going to get playlisted. So I was like, oh, this kid who I'm seeing on with Jamal Edwards on SBTV, man, like the kid's talented. Man. And then I heard the record and was like, let me playlist it. And then that year we had a yearly thing that was called Hot 4. Which was our tips of the year.
I remember that, yeah.
So it was like One Extra's version of BBC Soundpop. And we were the only, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, there might have been someone else somewhere in the world who done it, but as far as we know, in terms of popular media, I was the only person to tick Ed Sheeran in any list in 2000, and I think it was 2009 going into 2010. Well, it could have been 10 into 11, I can't remember, but we were the only platform that tipped him. No other platform tipped him, not Radio 1, not MTV, no one. That particular year.
Yeah.
So I think George probably saw that, plus saw that I was a risk taker in other ways, and I got the job done. I was consistent, all of the things that you want in a worker, you know, and was like, I could do with that at Spotify. And he also knows how I think about culture. He knows that I can sort of mix the two, you know, like I'm a translator. I can translate culture into a boardroom.
Got it.
In a way that at the time,
I've seen you do that.
There wasn't always that many people that could do that at that particular point in time. There's more now for sure. So he hired me. We joined Spotify.
How did Radio 1 or BBC take you exiting? Were they okay? Obviously, I knew you were there was some sort of cover where while you were there in terms of Laura going away and having and whatnot. But how did they sort of take? Because there was a point where it felt like anyone in the senior role wanted to like move into streaming. You led the charge.
Yeah, definitely, man. So I would say, I mean, just like anyone, they don't want to lose an employee who they rate. You know? So there was efforts made to keep me. What had happened was I had gone for the Radio 1 head of music job had come up.
Yeah.
And there was a big kind of, it's funny now, 10 years on, like watching back the way that it played out, but there was like a big rush for, it was the most important job in music at the time.
Yeah.
So everyone and their auntie, mother, cousin, brother, dog was applying for the job. But I think that there was probably 4 or 5 serious contenders. Yeah. You know, myself and a few other people. So I always said in my head, well, if I don't get this job, it's going to be tricky for me to
revert to your role,
revert to my old role, because I really felt like I was ready for the role. And I didn't get the role. So at that point, I was kind of ready to leave the Beeb anywhere at that point. The Beeb's amazing, man. They're like my second family, do you know what I mean? I've got so many friends there. They're such an amazing organisation. But just like you have to leave the nest of the family certain times.
You got to grow up.
Exactly. It was a similar kind of vibe. So basically at the point at which George came to me, he had just been my boss for 6 years beforehand.
Okay.
Or, sorry, 8 years he'd been my boss, or
so-
one of my bosses. So he knew where my head was at anyway. So it was an easy conversation for him probably. And yeah, when I joined Spotify wasn't a household name. You know?
Yeah, it wasn't.
I remember artists saying, I remember seeing Colin Batzer, big up Colin Batzer at EGA. I remember seeing Colin in Ibiza that year. And it was just after the job had been announced that I was joining Spotify. And he was like, are you sure? Like, you know what I mean? Are you sure? Little do you know how much streaming would change his life. You know what I mean? So obviously big up Colin and EGA and Charlie and the whole team. But yeah, so streaming wasn't a household name. Spotify wasn't a household name.
Yeah.
People didn't quite know what streaming was.
Yeah.
And me and George and the team changed that. We changed that.
This takes to the next part of the conversation with like when the idea of a playlist and the opportunity. So talk to us about who we be and how you sort of came about creating that and how important that was to culture at the time. Because to me, it felt like it was the most important playlist in UK black culture, and we didn't know we needed it, but we really needed it. Sort of at the time. So how did that come about and how were you given the freedom to create it?
Yeah. So again, big up George over to this because he gave me so much freedom across all of the roles that I kind of worked with him. And when I came into Spotify, they had 2 playlists. They had a playlist that was aimed at grime fans called Grime Shutdown.
Yeah.
And they had a playlist that was aimed at UK hip hop rap fans called Rap UK.
Yeah. Who created those playlists? Where did they come from?
They were created by a guy called 2 people, I think, were the 2 lead. I mean, it was before my time, but they got James Foley, who was running playlists at that time. And then a guy called Rob Khan, who was sort of James's number 2, basically, within Spotify, making playlists. And at Spotify, I don't know if it's changed, but back then, you could just come up with an idea for a playlist and launch it. And that was it. So it was like, we should have a playlist called Gym Music. Gym Music playlist, create a cover, and then that was it. The whole world would have a playlist called Gym Music. So when I came in on day one, I looked at our playlist portfolio and was like, it feels like something's missing. Because I go to Wireless Festival every year, and I know that the average inner city black music fan doesn't just listen to grime.
Yeah.
Or doesn't just listen to rap, or doesn't just listen to R&B, but there's like an amalgamation of all of those different sounds. And there needs to be a playlist that mirrors Wireless Festival.
Got it.
So big up Live Nation and Ponu and the whole team that put Wireless Festival together, because that was the inspiration behind
I didn't know that. Okay.
Wireless Festival.
Sick.
And I suppose a bit of Park Life and some of the other Coachella, but it was Wireless Festival. So I went about making what was called a skeleton playlist, where you sort of make a playlist that's like a shadow playlist and you sort of test it out. So it was like a bit of R&B, a bit of dancehall, a bit of Afro beats, Afro swing, a bit of grime, a bit of hip hop.
Or popular UK sort of black culture.
Exactly that. And then, sort of went into my car, pressed play. And after like song 3, I was like, yeah, this is it. This is it. So I sat down with George. And I said, yo, George, I've got an idea for a playlist. Spoke him through it. He was on board straight away. Then he was like, what should we call it? And this is the funniest conversation because, see, sometimes, the most like life-changing, culture-shaping things, sometimes the decisions behind them are really strategic. Okay. So like the music behind Who We Be, that was really strategic. Do you know what I mean? That was hours and hours of thinking and curating and talking and strategizing it with George and the rest of the team. And, me having all these whiteboards and documents and stuff. But the name itself, me and George were eating cheese sandwiches in one of the meeting rooms and just throwing names back and forth. And he was like, it needs to be like this. And I was like, no, it needs to be like that. And I'm scrolling through Spotify, I'm scrolling through like my playlists and stuff. And I'm like, it needs to be sort of like, it needs to like represent like who someone is.
Yeah.
So it needs to be like, this is me.
Okay.
George is like, no, that's rubbish. I said, this is me. It's like who we are. And then DMX was on my last played list. And he's got a song called Who We Be.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, Who We Be? George was like, that's a sick name. Whatever, he probably didn't say sick name. He was like, that's a wicked name. I said, Who We Be, that's it. So big up DMX because he's the inspiration behind the
Did not
Who We
know
Be
that,
playlist.
see?
And that was it. That's how the name came up. And we were like,
Crazy.
Who We Be? And I made a and within, I think, a day, the playlist was live. And the strategy behind that was, let's make something that becomes culture.
Yeah.
I wanted Who We Be to be something that could become a cultural token that
Yeah.
people could keep in their pockets.
Correct.
So from day one, it was always about merch, podcasts, live events, music, etc.
Yeah.
But we had to start off with making the playlist popular. So yeah, we launched the playlist, and then within a month, it was probably one of the most popular black music playlists.
Yeah.
And then it then grew to become one of the most popular playlists across all genres. At its peak, it was changing the chart. You know, if a record was sort of top 5 in Who We Be, the amount of streams that it generated would affect the national chart.
Which is similar to what you did at radio with the playlisting. So if you added a record, like you said before, to a Radio 1 playlist, that's normally the top 10 records. And then you were integral in the transition on the streaming side by building this.
Yeah, exactly. And big up the team, man. We had a great team, back then. Obviously, there's still a great team now, but the team that we had at that time, man, was an amazing team. So we had Who We Be. We had other playlists at that time. That's where we had Hot Hits UK, which is obviously still an amazing
Still
playlist.
big, yeah.
And Rap UK grew to, Rap UK at its peak was, again, changing the charts. So with Who We Be, we launched it. At one point it was maybe like second or third most popular new music playlist at that moment in time. And then we were then like, how do we expand on this?
We're going to talk about that as well. So Who Be turned to a live event, and how did that come about? And how did you go around choosing who would headline? Because that was another tricky.
Yeah, it definitely was tricky, man. So the live event came around. It was always something that me and George wanted to do from day one.
Yeah.
And it was always kind of like in the plan, like the black music, like strategy plan. How are we going to attract a young, cool black music consuming audience? It can't be through just the music, because they're also getting music on YouTube and Amazon and Apple Music and radio and etc. Live events, etc. So we need to offer more.
Yeah.
So we basically built out a pitch deck. We went about getting sort of the funding for it, and it was a large level of investment. It was a.
How do you go about getting funding? Do you speak to sort of Apple Finance? Do you go sit them and pitch them an idea? How would you get the money to?
Just internally, obviously there was always in any corporate company, there's always different pots of money for different things. So we went to a team called the Premium Team.
Yeah.
And the Premium Team, I'll rewind. So I did some research on how loyal are black music audiences compared to their non-black music audience peers. And because it feels anecdotally like if you get the black vote on anything, that black vote's quite loyal. It doesn't switch in the same way it switches in pop music and certain other genres. That's how it felt anecdotally at the time. So I got some research conducted internally that showed that black music audiences were 3 times more likely to convert from free Spotify users
to premium
users.
Smart.
After their 90-day trial.
Okay.
They were 3 times more likely. And we measured that by seeing obviously their behavior on the platform once they had registered. So we knew that these were black music fans, and we compared them to people that weren't listening to black music who joined at that exact same time. And I don't know if you can still monitor that behavior anymore, because this was pre-GDPR.
Got it.
Where we had probably a bit more access to data in a legal way. I don't know if you can monitor it in such a specific way these days. So we saw that they were more likely to convert from free to premium, but not only that, once they had become premium users, in the next 90 days, they were more likely to stay and retain as customers in after 90 days plus.
So you built a compelling case.
Yeah, so it was like, so we went to the Premium Team, and the Premium Team's job was spend money to attract people to turn them from free to premium.
Got it.
So me and George went to the team internally and was like, here's some evidence. Here's our plan.
Yeah.
Here's why. Here's some evidence to back up why we're saying the why. give us some money, please. And they made a 7-figure investment, man. It was a very, very large investment that they made into that first OBE, and I think you were there. Do you know what I mean? You saw
I was there.
the production, everything on there,
It
man.
felt like a proper headline concert tour thing.
Yeah.
It felt mad. And also, I think we might have had Stefflon Don.
You did have Stefflon Don. Yeah, you had Stefflon Don, man.
It was incredible. I remember thinking, what the hell, like Spotify have gone clear, sort of thing. And I think it takes a lot of bravery to even sort of fight for something like that within those sort of corporations, because I think a lot of people wouldn't know about it. I suppose that's why you got the job. But a lot of people wouldn't even know how to sort of make that sound sexy to somebody, which I think I see a recurring pattern in your career each time you sort of figure out how to incentivize people by giving them evidence, whether it be researching on the internet, whether it be going to a data team and building that. So you've got Spotify, you've totally changed the game, you've built Who We Be, you've done the live stuff, and then I get a call say, Austin's at Apple. What the heck? So he's ran radio. He's been culturally impactful at Spotify, but it wasn't enough for him. He's at Apple. So what? Talk me loosely through that in the best way you can.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, listen, Spotify is an amazing company, and I was there for 3 years.
Yeah.
But listen, the generation before me, the way that you would operate back then and the way for success was to, and the way to have a greater impact was to go into companies and work there for 15, 20, 25 years. And that's great. And they've done an amazing job building the industry by doing that.
Yeah.
Our generation, millennials, if you look at the successful ones, they have stayed at companies for between sort of 3 and 10 years, you know. So for me, I felt like I had made the most amount of impact that I could make at Spotify. I helped us become the #1 market leader without any question.
Yeah.
We had sold out an arena.
Yeah, you've done tours.
You know,
Literally every side.
we had done everything that we could have done. We done. We'd sort of been involved in delivering #1 records and albums, breaking records that still exist to this day.
Yeah.
So it felt like I had made the most amount of impact that I could make. George Gatudis left Spotify to go to Apple, and obviously that's my guy.
Yeah.
And he needed a striker,
He needed this guy.
And I'm someone who sort of delivers 30 goals a season, so it's like, all right, cool, that like what I'm gonna hire you. So that was a part of it.
Yeah.
And then also I felt like there was potential for me to have even greater global impact at Apple. My time at Apple was shorter than I would have liked.
Yeah.
But when the opportunity came up to sort of help run Atlantic Music and have a senior role at vice president level at Warner Music UK, and it was a call that came from Max Lusada and Tony Harlow directly, that's something that you've really got to take seriously.
Yeah, you can't. That.
So even though I loved Apple, and I actually saw myself at Apple for a long time, actually.
On entry,
exactly.
You were the best in day.
Exactly. I sort of went in there on day one and was like, yo, this company is an incredible, I can see why they're #1. Yeah. You've got some amazing people that work there. Obviously, shout out Brian Rose, George Gatudis that was there, Steve Owen, but most importantly, Ryan Newman. Do you know what I mean? He's over there running things. Big up Ryan.
Incredible executive.
Old colleague of mine at the BBC, obviously, where we were running things. He's now over at Apple. We were at Apple for a short amount of time together. And then, like I said, he's now running things over there, which is incredible to see another black executive.
Who's and someone who's not limited by genre as well.
Exactly
he's
that.
very much across all music.
Absolutely,
good to
man.
see.
When you talk about people clump me and Ryan together because we're around about the same age and we came up at the BBC together. I get the headlines, when it comes to like being responsible for like a lot of the black British music success. But Ryan, rightly so, sits alongside me as also being someone. Do you know what I mean?
I think if you know the business, we all know, and sort of the characters that are doing stuff. He's 100%.
Exactly that. Man. So it's a big up Ryan. But anyway, so I was at Apple. And I was like, yo, this is incredible, man. It's an incredible company. We launched a playlist called the Agenda Playlist.
Yeah, which is still good.
Exactly. It's still an amazing playlist. And then Max Lusada called me, man, and Tony Harlow and Max Lusada, called me. And I was like,
obviously, for those who don't know, Max Lusada is the global head of Warner Music and is responsible for all the record labels within the Warner Group globally. He's an English person, but an incredibly influential character. So you get the call from the big boss.
Yeah, exactly. I get a call from the big bosses. Do you know what I mean? And listen, his exact words to me were, if you've still got ambitions of having a global impact and helping to run a record label.
What a pitch! That's a tough.
I was like,
what
you're
can you say
G'd
to
up.
that?
This guy is so, I was just on the phone like, this guy's, I need to work for this guy. This guy's a G.
Are you still ambitious?
On stuff, So anyway, so he, yeah, sort of, we met and that sort of had a conversation, and it felt like the right thing to do. It felt like the right thing.
It was really good timing because I literally started doing publishing around that time. I've been in records for a long time, and I got a call from Brian and Ed at the time to sort of come in. And I remember sort of the process of it. You probably just signed your deal. I wasn't sure where you were in your situation, but I knew that I was potentially going to be hired, and your name came up, and I went, yeah, that's my guy. I think they'll sort of send me asking me if we get on type of vibe. And I'm like, yeah, of course. And thank God I said the right thing at the time.
Exactly. You could have killed my team. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
You could have killed my team. You could have killed my team too. So I remember thinking, no, it's Austin. And I remember thinking, God, thank God it's Austin, because there were many times along the years, and I'm just reverting to some of your other roles, where I've been in a tough spot and I've reached out to you and gone, look, I really need some help on this artist. I know you don't have to, but there's enough stats for you to sort of support it. Like if you could try and just help move it, and you've done it. And I guarantee there's probably around 20 other sort of executives similar to me who've had to put a call into you at some point.
More than 20.
Sorry, but there's a bang of characters where you didn't have to, but did, sort of thing. I think that's kept you in good stead, and I think. I remember when them asking me about you and me gassing them about you too, but me bigging you up, and then later on finding out that we're going to end up having to work together across Atlantic, which
I didn't know during my conversations. I was really happy when I heard that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was Ed and Bry. Big up Ed and Bry, obviously the co-presidents of
Atlantic Records,
Atlantic Music Group. So I found out from them, and I was like, "Oh, that's my guy, man." So I was pleasantly surprised when I heard too, man.
Yeah. So you get the call from Tony and from Max, and they offer you the role. And are they very clear on what the role is, or do they just want your energy on the floor? How did that come?
Yeah, no, they were clear. They were clear on kind of what the role would be, and I think, and what I will always big Max and Tony up for is. I said to them at the time, this can't be a vanity hire, man. This can't be.
Well, obviously, like, George Floyd.
But this is before. This is actually before. This is the point. This is before George Floyd and the crazy summer of 2020.
Yeah, okay.
This is the beginning of 2020.
Okay.
Before COVID, this is.
Jesus.
So
it wasn't a vanity hire.
Yeah, exactly, man. It wasn't at all, man. And big up Max and Tony, because they empowered me and have empowered me.
Yeah.
In just an incredible way, supported by Ed and Bryony, of course, obviously. So, yeah, man, like they were just like, look, we want to empower you. We want to empower you in a way that's serious, consistent, and long term.
Yeah.
So for me, once I sort of went through that process of getting to know them a little bit more, it became a no-brainer. All right, you know what, this feels like that's my destiny.
Got it.
And fair play to them. For the entire 5 years that I've been at Atlantic Records, Tony Harlow's been nothing but supportive of absolutely everything that I've done.
No, I've seen it.
You've seen it yourself, right?
I've been out of him because of it.
Yeah. So he's empowered a whole kind of new generation of diverse executives, man. So big up Tony Harlow.
Yeah, he's
obviously
very
Max is no longer at Warner Music Group, but for the time that me and him did work together, he also empowered me on a global level, and it was actually Max Lusada that invited me to sit on the Vatnik Family Foundation board, which is the $100 million social justice fund, or where we've distributed almost $50 million in the last 5 years to charitable organisations.
Amazing.
That was Max, that that's the only British person on a global board, man. So big them both up, man.
No, big up. Where's the remaining 50?
It's being distributed.
Is it? Okay. Where's the money, cuz?
Service fee, no. It's being distributed.
Mate,
so we've delivered, I think I want to say 47 million, I think it is, up until now. There's a sort of contracted pledge that the other remaining 53 will be dispersed exactly over a period of time.
Okay, cool.
And there's been a bunch of organisations, man, in the UK that have
benefited from it.
5, 6, and 7 figure funding, you know, from the organization.
Amazing. Okay, so obviously you're at Atlantic now, and you're part of some big records. I think we had a really good dynamic. So obviously we had some success with Tion Wayne and the Body record, which was massive. I remember at the time, obviously, me as an A&R man, helping make the records, but in terms of getting the budgets through and dealing with the sort of like, which is what you specialise in, dealing with the characters that are real hurdles for sort of executing stuff like this. You were incredible at getting that. How did you approach as clearing all the sort of Tion Wayne stuff, and how did you find that process? Because obviously it turned out really well, but before it actually was a moment, we were in the trenches with some characters. Can you talk to us more about that process and you sort of convincing everyone to actually fill the money?
Yeah, definitely, man. So I came from the BBC. So the BBC was like the height of getting through red tape.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Dealing with difficult characters. The BBC had something like, I want to say like 20,000 employees at that time. You know, even just the building that we was in, there was like 1,000 people in the building. So coming from the BBC, it was light work. Because it was like, I'm used to, if you want to spend £1 at the BBC, if you want to book a train ticket at the BBC to go to Scotland, that's £50. The amount of paperwork that you've got to do to get that signed off. So going into a label where it's sort of the private sector and a budget. So obviously there's fiscal responsibility, but it's not as fiscally tight as someone at the BBC that's public money.
Yeah.
It was cool, man. Like I've always been able to translate culture to commerce and have those type of conversations. But also, most importantly, I had a supportive executive network around me.
Yeah.
I had Liz Goodwin, pick up Liz Goodwin, the general manager at Atlantic Records. I had Ed and Bryony, the co-presidents of Atlantic Records, with them up. So there was always an amazing kind of foursome, sort of 24-hour relationship where budgets would get cleared, creative ideas would get signed off, etc. And obviously with me and you and the workflow that me and you had, it was an incredible kind of dynamic that we had. And big up Ed and Bryony, because again, similar to Max and Tony at a kind of more senior level, Ed and Bryce, the co-presidents, and my direct kind of day-to-day bosses operationally gave me sort of nothing but support, guidance when I needed it. Because, you know, they've got 15 years on me in terms of working in labels. So even though we're roughly the same age and have got roughly the same experience, generally overall, I was coming in there like an intern. I didn't know anything about how, I knew how the music industry worked, and I had enough transferable skills that I could, of course, go in there as an executive and deliver as I did. But I'm not going to sit here and say I knew how labels worked, if that makes sense. Like, I was going in there in certain areas with less knowledge than an intern.
No, but I think that you had the benefit of understanding how to navigate people and having been a part and been integral to some real key cultural moments within the business. And I think sometimes your lens is better than someone who's been institutionalized and been in the system for like 15 years, because you're braver, you're willing to sort of push the boundaries a lot more without sort of being scared of the sort of risk of doing it. So from my side, just looking over there, I think it's a really good thing to have that. And I think no matter whatever you're doing, that you'll always be able to sort of
100%. Of course, man. And I was bet on myself. And if I didn't feel like I could do the job, then I wouldn't have accepted it, you know. And I'm just doing the British self-deprecating.
I know you're doing the British thing.
So you know, so I hear you. I think message received.
You got to own it. I think also, like, part of the reason we're doing this podcast is because we want to inspire young executives of the future to lean into the business and to understand there's more to our business than just being an artist from facing. And I think you've built an amazing career. I've been lucky enough to build an amazing career too. I have a family, I have a house, and all the other sort of things that you don't always associate with people behind the scenes. And one of the things I say about you is I don't always see like loads of opening of events, loads of things. You're a bit of a myth, and you're quite low key. Is that a deliberate thing that you do in terms of how you hold yourself, or is it something that you're just not the sort of person who wants to be out all the time?
I think it's a mixture. I'm most millennials are 1 foot pre-internet, 1 foot post-internet.
Correct. Yeah.
So half of me comes from the generation of complete discretion. Doing a podcast is unthinkable. Do you know what I mean? To half of me, like even just sitting here telling people about my life and I've got siblings and family and that in public is just a part of me is like, what are you doing? You know, that's half of me. And then the other half of me as a millennial is all about, you know, publicity obviously helps, and letting people know your story and being more out there obviously helps in terms of helping the next generation and inspiring, etc. So I'm always torn, always. I think I've always sat in positions in the center of the industry.
Okay.
And you can't be successful sitting in the center of the industry without being a lone wolf. Georgia Gatudis, Laura Lucans, Ryan Newman. You look at the whoever's, you know, people that are running TikTok and Apple Music and Amazon now. Tuma Bassa, do you know what I mean? Carl Cherry, you know, on a good international level. You know what I mean? Doug Ford, like they're all myths, every single one of us.
So
yeah, 100%.
Okay, the other thing I want to sort of touch on quickly, I know we're running out of time, is money. You've always been very good. I remember when I was at Atlantic, we spoke a lot, and you were very good with investing. You're very good at sort of like managing money, and I think that's a real good, amazing skill. A lot of young executives are not necessarily sort of savvy with that. You've always like involved in sort of private banking and stuff like that. How have you educated yourself in that way, and what would you advise for young people to do?
Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up poor, you know, so I grew up on the breadline. So it wasn't until my sort of 20s that I even really, or maybe teens, that I really even started to like touch money in any meaningful way, especially because I was trying to make money legally as well. So it was a real sort of tough grind. But I was just scared of being, when I first got into the industry, there was a generation that were just coming out of the industry, and some of them made some really good decisions around what to do with their money, and some didn't.
Yeah.
And the ones that didn't, the way they ended up always scared me. You know, I was always like, I do not want to get to the end of this amazing journey that I'm on, having helped hundreds of people become millionaires and thousandaires.
It's all about words like this.
And I'm left with nothing. I'm going to try and enrich myself in the process. And so I was always really deliberate when it came to that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to miss out on the same train that I've put everyone else on.
Yeah.
So I always have been around entrepreneurship, investing.
Yeah.
But the two people that changed my mindset, and I want to shout them out because I've never shouted them out before, is Anna Morton and Kit Goring. So Anna Morton was working at St. James's Place at the time, and she was my first sort of financial advisor. And she was the first person that kind of made me, because I grew up financially illiterate. Like I said, I grew up poor. She was the first person that told me, no. Just because you're only on £45,000 a year, that doesn't mean you can't invest in the stock market. You know what I mean? You can invest £5 a week into the stock market. It doesn't have to be thousands and thousands of pounds. So big up Anna Morton, and she's still one of my closest friends to this day, man. That big up Anna. And then the other was Kit Goring, who was working at a bank at the time. And it was a bank, you know, sort of a bank where you have to sort of be invited in and stuff. And he sort of took a chance on me. I didn't match the criteria of that bank at the time. But he was like me, where he was a risk taker and he wanted to like fight the good fight and help the new generation of people coming through. So he was like, look, you don't quite match the criteria financially that we're looking for, but we're going to help you get there. And he sort of convinced his boss the same way all those years earlier I had convinced my boss to play his part X, Y, and Z, and sort of got me in. And, you know, that really sort of helped me and stuff, man. So I always say I always say to anyone who comes to me asking for advice, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be in my financial journey yet, but I always say to them, man, these are the things that you've got to do that are going to help you.
I've always noticed that. Like, you've been very astute, very on it. So to talk, I think a lot of young people could really learn a lot from you in that said sort of thing. So I think that's an amazing thing to have. Lastly, we end the podcast with a question, or two questions. One thing that's changed, or one thing that hasn't in the business during your period of being in it.
Wow, what a question. I would say the one thing that's changed is I see more females in positions of authority, and I see more Black employees across the business generally.
Okay.
That's also the thing that hasn't changed. There's not, if you look at the music, it isn't always represented at the highest level of corporate organizations. And when I go to the Brit Awards, when I go to the Mercury Awards, when I go to the Ivor Novellos, when I go to award ceremonies, which is a real microcosm of the industry,
snapshot of what's going on in the business,
too male and white.
Okay.
Way too male and white still. And I would love to be sat here in a year's time and there's a few more females that have been given real opportunities at senior level. Black music, in terms of MC-driven black music, is going through a bit of a recession. Not black music on the whole, MC-driven black music, commercial recession.
Yeah.
And we can be honest about that because we know it always rebounds back. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't hire
people,
young black executives.
I think the
because it
recession's
always
important.
bounces back.
I think the recession is important because you've got to load up. People have got to cook and refine their art and then come out with it.
History tells us the tsunami comes, it wipes everything away in its path. It then recedes back and then it comes again. You know, it's as old as the industry. So we know that genres are sort of always morph and move and stuff. But the same thing that has infused me in these last few years is also still the thing that worries me.
Okay, I mean, that's a good answer. Listen, thank you so much for coming on. That has been a good experience.
Definitely, man.
I think a lot of people will be really excited and really interested in your journey and what you've done. And as a friend of yours, I want to say big up for all your work.
Thank you,
and I hope that the next bunch of executives that are coming up for the business tap you up and hit you up and sort of ask for more advice and also learn through some of the stuff that you've gone through so they don't have to learn themselves.
Big up, man. Listen, big up all the work that you've been doing, obviously. We haven't spoken a bit about your illustrious career, but maybe we can put a little CV at the bottom on text. But outside of that, man, I've been amazed at Lion Bear Music Group and everything that you guys have achieved. I just saw the new Joe Devlin song, you know what I mean? Which I was like, oh, right, like you were telling me about that a few months ago. You finally managed to get that over the line, man. So very, very happy about all the work that you're doing as well.
Thank you. Cool. Cheers.
Yeah,
thank you.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Good.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, man.